1 sec. Let me figure out what's going on here. Okay, so dynamic page validation. I've got an EE and a CE because I guess we had some issues merging in. So 2 parts. Hopefully we review the change, so I'll go real quick. So basically, there's a new class validatable. Actually, I think it's a module, now that I think about it. And it will scan each page and validate all the elements are present. So let's see here. Oh my goodness. Let me start from scratch here. So you have a page in our page object, and we have elements on each view. Basically, what the dynamic page validation will do is check for each required true. Ideally, this will be where this won't be even required anymore. It'll actually be the inverse. So let's say the password field right here wouldn't be required. The ultimate goal of this would be to switch this completely, so we'll have required false. In order to make the least amount of change and the least amount of touch the least amount of files, the best way to do that is to do required true for now. So basically, it's just it's a toggle. So let's take the login test for the first example. So this one's the smoke test to log in. What I've done is changed the visit action and the click element action. Those are the only 2 actions that are going to be changed for now. And so visit has this page main login parameter. So let's take a look at visit real quick. So it'll basically visit the address of the page, and then it'll validate that the elements are present on that page. And that's the key right there. So basically, it'll scan every single element of login page. So from the excuse me, from the login spec, we expect to land on the login page, right? So on the login page, that class, it scans each one that's required. And if that element isn't present, then it'll raise an exception saying you're not on that page like you thought you were. So if we needed to, let's say, for example, the sign-in tab, it's going to be dangerous on this the login page, because the tabs can be shifted. Say, for example, LDAP, it might default to LDAP. So stuff like this we won't be requiring by default, because this could be defaulting to some other location. Let's see. So let me go ahead and set a debug point on visit real quick and run through this. Login test. The one thing I am missing is documentation on this. So in that MR, I might do it after. I probably should do it with, but I'm going to have to put it in the QA directory. We're going to have to, not the QA directory, sorry, the QA project is to document how this validation works and basically what's going to happen with it. All right. So I made it to the browser visit, and we're on validate elements present right here on the login page. So let's go ahead and step into and check it out. So base page is the main login page, you can see here. And for each element, one sec. I don't think I was where I thought I was. hang on. Okay, there we go. All right, so right here, we've gotten past the guard clause. So which element are we looking at right now? We are looking at the login page, the QA login page. You can see down here on my variables panel. The QA login page is required. So basically it just validates that that's present. So it right now I have the to-do saying this weight needs to be replaced by the weight class. Right now we're just using the capybara weight, but eventually that will be replaced by the weight class. So basically that's it. So after this is merged in, I think the most ideal place for everyone to start using this is going to be when they're working on when they're touching these libraries, just like last time we were kind of taking all out of the bad elements and such. Let's stop this debug. When we were taking out these bad elements and replacing them with QA elements, just like last time, we're going to be kind of looking at the elements that are going to be required on the page. And what required means is it's going to be loading no matter what. These elements are going to be on the base page, on the page when you first navigate to them, and they're going to not be conditional. So for example, an Ajax load after you press a button, an element appears. That wouldn't be required because that's a conditional element. And of course, this will apply to all pages right now because the let's see, the validatable, yeah, it is a module. So the base page includes. I'm sorry, it does extend the validatable module. So it applies to all pages. Let's say the label page index. Let's say the create new always shows. Let's add required true to this. So that means anytime we end up on the label index page, it checks to make sure that that's there before we continue to the next step.
But you said that eventually this would be flipped so that the true would be the default and we'd have to add required false, or did I misunderstand?
That's correct. That's correct. Ideally, RB. Yeah, so ideally this flag, trying to remember where it is now. Can't remember, but yes, that's the ideal situation where all elements are required by default, and then later on, if it's a conditional element, we'll add required false to it instead. But until we get to that stage, I think we stick with this, and then that way we can kind of, because this is a huge change, and we're trying to make it as little as possible. So I mean, yep. So that's correct. Okay.
Great stuff. Sorry, go ahead. You have more stuff?
Yep. So basically, that's pretty much it. And I think the biggest thing, like I said, is as soon as this is merged in, you're able to start using it. So think about the rule of thumb. Does it appear on the page once you end up there? If it does, it needs to be required true. And then, also one thing. So the visit and the click were the two functions that have that functionality. So if we look back at base, and we have the click element, this has this method here. So it validates the elements, and I'm adding a completely new argument to the click element. So if you take a look at login.rb, we have on every test, we have the sign in using credentials, sign in using GitLab credentials right here. So after we click the sign in button, we expect to be somewhere, or we expect something to happen. So that's basically what it is. We click something, we expect something to happen, and Before it was this, and it's completely fine to do that. And then we would expect them somewhere, so page main menu. And the cool thing about this, like I said, is you can start doing all kinds of stuff with the click element. You can put the stuff in there. So like, I don't know, some page, and you could commit that, and it wouldn't do any validation because some page doesn't have any required elements just yet identified. So that's the other part, is going to be going through the page library and adding the required elements as you see fit. So it's going to be a slow, progressive change, but once all the elements in the libraries are identified as required and that stuff, we'll make that switch and delete all of the required true code and flip that flag to say everything is required by default.
So you said that right now this is on click element and visit. Are you anticipating this validation will be added to any other functionality?
Really, no, because visit and click element are the only actionable things. When you set the text, it really doesn't do much as far as like navigating. Clicking, when you click something, you expect something to happen. You expect a result from the UI, and that's why it's there on click element and visit. And I don't expect it to be on any other function. There was one more thing that Mark and I and Zeph had discovered on our dynamic validation when we were going through the demo yesterday. It was yesterday. We one more thing to add to this. I'm not going to do it to this MR, but on the validatable, when you click an element, it's going to be ideal that we wait until it's clickable. So right here we have has element. For all the required elements, I'll probably have another condition here that says wait until it's also clickable. So that way we wait for any animations all dynamically. So this one validatable class will wait till all elements are present, fine, and then they'll wait until they're all clickable. That way we're confident that the page is static and going to stay still when we're running our test.
That's really cool work.
Yeah, really cool. I like it that it fails fast, because now if you're not expecting something, right, it fails right there at the click element, versus
That's
failing somewhere in the other parts of the test where it helps a lot with debugging. Really cool. I had some suggestions where is it possible to, is it sequential right now where you have a list of required elements in a page, right? Is it possible to do like a concurrent threading where you just go find these 5 elements immediately, versus like now it's like a waterfall that finds the first one, second one, and if the third one fails, then it fails? Or do you see any performance enhancements here in the future, or is it already doing it asynchronously?
So it's doing, if I'm understanding your question correctly, we're looping through each element, and I think okay, instead of looping through each element, I can see an improvement in performance with this if I swallow those things in an array, and then what was the oh man, I'm blanking, but
I think I know where you're getting to. Just fetch those elements at the same time, and then whichever fails first.
Yeah, and check the yeah.
You essentially be polling until they're all true.
But right now, as far as the performance on this, I don't expect any huge performance degradations. If anything, it's going to. I think Zeph actually brought this up in the MR, so you can see the discussion, but. I don't see any performance degradation, because sure, we might be waiting a little bit longer, but that's necessary in order to make sure that the elements are there, and before we continue the test. And if of course they aren't, yeah, it breaks immediately.
Sounds great. Yeah, I think that's the 80 for the 20 performance improvements down the line. But yeah, just want to highlight that. Yeah.
So the login test I like to show because it's real quick. So we right there, it validated that we're on the login page. As soon as we click that sign in link, it's already right now, it's on the validate page, or it's on the validate that's making sure that we're there. So it's all happening in the back there.
Very cool. One other question I had is, do we foresee any change to the base page structure? Because I think there's a question on like inheritance versus composition, where do you want to just extend it or just ingest the library? Do you foresee any changes there? Because if you extend, it's just like default get everything, but like a more granular pattern is to have it compose or contain each library instead. Do you have any thoughts around that going forward in framework?
No, I don't believe so. I think the way we you're talking about in the context of the validatable, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about in the context of the base page. So like if we inherit extend, right, then the stack is going to be huge.
Yeah.
So do you foresee as some mechanisms may be suitable to be extended from, which is default for everything going forward, but some mechanisms maybe you just compose it at the parent level, and then the child objects will have the child page objects will contain this helper function instead of just extending from it.
No, I think this is applicable to everything. This is applicable to layers. This is applicable to pages. Any UI element that you can possibly imagine, it's going to be applicable to it. Like even when you click the profile icon on the top, it brings up that layer. That layer right there is also going to be validated as well. When you click that profile link, you expect something to happen. What do you expect? That you expect that layer to pop up. So profile layer, and then it'll validate that the elements are there before you continue.
Will there be any issues if there's a button that say reloads the page? So it's the same page object, but we're waiting for something to change based on that click. Will that cause any issues?
So there was an issue that I had with something like that, and I think I still have the code in there because that's a fantastic question. Let's see here, base click element.
Yeah, maybe for refresh, you just reflect on itself and just make sure that it's waiting for itself again.
Yeah. Okay. Right here. Yeah, this comment here. On 97, I had this is kind of this was my original implementation, but of course it was breaking a lot of things because of that situation that you just described. So when page is not equal to nil, when page equals self.class, what would happen is it would validate that you're still on the same page. So for example, you click the profile link and you didn't specify the layer to validate, it'll validate that the menu or the main page is still there. So as far as your question goes, when you refresh or refreshing, it doesn't invoke this situation. It'll only invoke this validation when you click and you specify the second parameter or you visit a page.
Very cool. Anything else to add, Dan?
Yeah, one more thing. So I wanted to, we just saw the smoke test run. I want to show you what happens if there is a conditional element that's required as true. So let's say let's go back to elements here. Let's say the password edit confirmation. Let's require all these elements.
Is that require or required?
Require. Okay, so we're now requiring the password field confirmation and change password button from the change password part. Hang on. It is required. Nice catch. Like, wait, something's wrong. Try that again. Okay, right there. You'll notice that it hasn't even started the test yet. We've gotten to visit, but of course now it's waiting on those elements now. And there we go, it fails. With the message, password confirmation did not appear on the login page as expected. So this is kind of the error we would expect.
Very cool.
That's so easy to understand. That's awesome.
Yeah, if we marry this with the screenshot, then we can just scale out the debugging to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and it reminds me, Mech, of the question you asked earlier, how we could improve that. This is another thing. So right now it's doing it, and this is where my mind was going, but I couldn't really articulate it. We have, let's say, those 3 elements as required, and none of those 3 elements appeared. That's where the performance would be cool, because we would be able to, instead of loop through each one and then fail on the first one that doesn't appear, we check all the elements like in general, and then whichever ones don't appear, we list them out, basically. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So instead of saying password confirmation, it'll say password field confirmation and change password wasn't available.
Yep, a more complete picture. Very awesome. Yeah, this is great. And kudos to you. I think breaking this down, I mean, I think this is like the smallest iteration that we can do, but it's still pretty big. So thanks for running head on with this. I think it's
I think the best part is that we're using it as soon as this is going to be put in, it's already going to be applied to the login page, and that's it. And that's the one page that we come to on every single test. So that gives us that gives us confidence that it's working. So
very cool.
Awesome work,
are we okay if I upload this to YouTube, or do you prefer a better recording that you did yesterday?
I could do a better recording, but I don't mind.
No, I mean iteration, right? I think this is good enough. I'm just gonna slice off some parts the beginning of the meeting that's not related, and then just focus on this part. So is everybody okay if I upload this to GitLab and filter it, and we're just gonna start advertising, socializing? Awesome. Very cool.